Have you ever sat in the quiet of your living room, maybe with a cup of tea in hand, and felt like the silence wasn't just in the room, but in your life? No buzzing phone, no updates, no check-ins, not even a birthday call. At first, you might chalk it up to a busy schedule. They're working. They're raising kids. But as the days turn into weeks, and the weeks turn into months, it hits you harder than you'd like to admit. Your child isn't just busy. They've pulled away, and they're not reaching out. Now, here's the hardest part. What if they're doing it on purpose? It's not easy to talk about, but too many good parents find themselves on the receiving end of this invisible wall. One day, you're involved. The next, you're treated like you don't exist. And no one ever taught us how to handle that kind of pain. But before we let it pull us into sadness or blame, let's pause and breathe together. Because this moment, as painful and as quiet as it is, can still be a turning point. You're not alone, and you're not powerless. Let's talk about what you can do right now, not just to deal with it, but to actually reclaim your peace, your purpose, and maybe even, over time, reconnect on your own terms. Not through begging, not through guilt, but through strength, dignity, and growth. And it all starts with one truth. You're not the only one in this silence. When your child stops reaching out, it's natural to think, should I call them? Should I apologize for something I don't even understand? Should I break the silence? That urge is real. It's maternal, paternal. It's human. But there's something deeper happening here, something we don't always recognize. This silence, it's not just about them cutting contact. It's about the loss of a role. Being a parent, especially one who's been involved for decades, becomes part of your identity. You cook their favorite meals. You remember their schedules. You pick up the phone even before they call. And then, nothing. That nothing starts to feel like failure, like a void you're supposed to fix. But here's something that might lift some of the weight off your shoulders. You're not responsible for someone else's silence. You may have made mistakes. They may have too. But silence isn't only about blame. It's also about where people are emotionally, what they're carrying, what they're avoiding, or trying to figure out. Sometimes silence means, I don't know how to talk right now. Sometimes it means, I'm overwhelmed and I don't even know what I need. And sometimes, sadly, it means they've chosen distance as their way of coping. But none of these reasons mean you're less worthy of love, respect, or peace. It's so important to understand this. You are not here to solve their silence. You are here to manage your side of the story. And that begins with choosing what you give your energy to. You cannot control whether they text you back. You cannot control whether they remember your birthday. You cannot control how they interpret the past. But you can control how you carry yourself today. You can control the way you treat your own mind, whether you fill it with regret and what-ifs, or whether you focus on what brings you clarity and calm. And you can absolutely control how you respond, not just to them, but to yourself. I know it sounds simple on paper, but it's not easy. Let's say today is quiet. No phone calls, no visits. Your calendar is wide open, and the thoughts start creeping in. Maybe I should have done more. Maybe I should reach out just once. Pause. Take a breath. Instead of chasing the silence, tend to what you do have power over. Start small. Open the window. Let fresh air in. Put on a pair of comfortable shoes and take a short walk. Not to escape the pain, but to remind yourself that you're still here, still living, still valuable. Maybe you try a new recipe or revisit a hobby you used to enjoy before life got too busy. Maybe it's time to start journaling, not about them, but about you. What made you smile today? What are you grateful for, even in this hard season? And what's one thing you can do that builds you up? Not because they'll notice, but because you'll feel it. When you focus on what you can control, something powerful starts to happen. You stop being defined by someone else's choices. You start building a life that stands strong, with or without their attention. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. But isn't no contact just a game? Isn't it all about who breaks first? Let me tell you something important. This is not a game. This is your life. It's not about who texts first. It's about who grows stronger, without needing to be rescued. If your child is pulling away, and you're trying to outlast them just to prove a point, you're still giving them control. You're still waiting for them to validate your role in their life. But you don't need to live in that waiting room. You can walk out of it, with your head held high. You don't have to chase. You don't have to fix what you didn't break. You just have to live. Honestly, calmly, proactively, because that's what builds your resilience. It's not about ignoring the pain. It's about choosing not to let it shape your entire day. And if you're wondering, but what if they never call again? We'll get to that, I promise. For now, though, I want you to try something the next time the silence feels too heavy. Instead of asking, why are they doing this to me? Try asking, what can I do for myself right now? That question, it's where your power lives. Whether that's watering your plants, reading something meaningful, calling a friend who makes you laugh, or simply sitting outside and watching the world go by, it all counts. Every small act of calm, of growth, of presence, it all adds up. You don't need their voice to hear your worth. You don't need their message to know that you matter. And maybe, just maybe, this silence isn't a punishment. Maybe it's a sacred pause, a time where you remember who you are outside of being someone's parent. Because yes, you'll always be their parent, but you're also more than that. You are a full, rich, evolving human being with your own journey to honor, one step at a time. There's a quiet kind of strength that lives in people who've been through long silences. The kind of strength that comes from sitting in the discomfort, not running from it. You may not even realize you've already been practicing it. Waking up, making the bed, feeding the dog, preparing a meal for one. Even when your heart feels a little heavier than usual. That's strength, quiet, steady, unshakable. Now, if your child hasn't called, hasn't messaged, hasn't come around, and if you suspect they're holding their own silence as firmly as you are, this might start to feel like some kind of standoff. Like a test of who cares less, who holds out longer, who will blink first. Let's put that thought to rest. Because this is not a test. It's not a challenge. And it's certainly not a game. When both of you are silent, it's easy to fall into the trap of interpreting everything. Maybe they're waiting for me. Maybe they're punishing me. Maybe I should break the ice just to show I still care. But reacting out of panic or guilt never leads to connection. It leads to imbalance. And you deserve balance. Instead of imagining what's happening on their side, bring the focus back home. To your breath, your body, your routine, your heart. You don't need to win some imaginary competition. What you need is peace. Peace in knowing that you're living in alignment with your values, not with someone else's silence. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you did something just for you? Not because someone needed it, not to prove a point, but because it made you feel grounded, free, alive. If it's been a while, Now is the time to return to that space. You see, when the phone doesn't ring, when no one walks through the door, it's easy to let your mind fill in the blanks with fear. What if they've moved on from me? What if I wasn't a good enough parent? What if I've been forgotten? These questions are heavy, and they'll weigh you down if you carry them all day. But here's a truth many people miss. Those questions only hold the power you give them. If you feed them, they'll grow. If you starve them of attention, they'll shrink. So when the what-ifs come, and they will, don't fight them. Don't pretend you're not hurting. Just acknowledge them without getting swept away. And then, get moving. Literally. Walk around your home. Stretch. Step outside. Let the sun touch your skin. The smallest shift in motion can unlock a wave of clarity and confidence. Because nothing heals a restless heart like movement with intention. And while you're doing this, remember, your silence isn't weak. It's not passive. It can actually be one of the strongest messages you send. It says, I'm here. I'm steady. I care. But I'm not chasing. I value myself enough to honor this space. It's a kind of language all its own. Not cold, not bitter, but dignified. And whether your child understands it now or not, it makes an impact. Even if they never speak it aloud, sometimes the best way to be heard is to stop speaking and let your actions, your calm, your self-respect, your life, speak for you. That doesn't mean being harsh. It means being clear. And if clarity is the gift you give yourself during this season, you're already ahead. Now, some days are harder than others. And on those days, the quiet can feel louder. Here's what I want you to try when that happens. Rather than asking, why is this happening to me? Try asking, what can I build today? It might be something small, like a puzzle or a new recipe or reorganizing a drawer that's been chaotic for too long. Or it might be something deeper, like reading a book that challenges your thinking, or journaling about the version of yourself you're becoming, because you are becoming someone new, even if no one sees it yet, even if your child never sees it. You're shifting. You're growing. Slowly, quietly. That matters. Picture this. Two people go silent. One lets it consume them. The other uses it as a space to grow roots, to get stronger, to become someone who radiates calm no matter who walks in or out of their life. Be that second person. Let your days be filled with small wins, not the kind anyone else claps for, the kind only you know about. Like the moment you wake up and decide not to check your messages first thing. That's a win. Or the moment you feel the urge to reach out, and instead of writing a message you might regret, you take a walk. That's a win. Or when you sit with your sadness instead of avoiding it, breathe through it, and choose to keep going anyway. That's a win too. These little victories, they build something, a foundation, a strength that no one can take from you. And here's the beautiful twist. Sometimes when you stop chasing validation from others, they start noticing the calm, confident energy you now carry. Not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. Now, will that always happen? Will every child come back when they sense your growth? No, some don't. But here's why it still matters. Because you're not doing this for them. You're doing it for you. You're building a version of yourself that can hold space for sadness without being broken by it. A version that can still laugh, still love, still look forward to things, even in the midst of uncertainty. You might be learning a new recipe. You might be reconnecting with old friends. You might be picking up that hobby you abandoned years ago because life got too busy. Whatever it is, it's yours now. You're not waiting to be chosen. You're choosing yourself. And slowly, Without realizing it, you're becoming the kind of person who no longer asks, "Will they come back?" but instead asks, "What kind of life do I want to create with the time I have left?" That's a powerful shift. You're not surviving this chapter. You're rewriting it, one quiet, intentional day at a time. There comes a moment when you stop waiting for the phone to ring, not out of bitterness, but out of peace. It doesn't happen all at once. Some days it still stings. But eventually you begin to feel something shift deep inside. You stop asking, "Why haven't they reached out?" And you begin to wonder, "What am I learning about myself through all of this?" That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Because here's the truth we don't always hear. Not every relationship finds its way back. Not every silence ends with a reunion. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean you were a bad parent. It just means that right now, their path and yours have taken different directions. The question isn't, will they come back? The question is, who am I becoming while they're gone? That's the part you can control. That's the part that leads to healing. You may be reading more now, taking walks more often, spending quiet evenings doing crossword puzzles, or learning how to use that new gadget your grandkids once laughed at you for trying to figure out. These little moments of independence, they add up. They're shaping something beautiful inside of you. You might even find that you enjoy your own company more than you thought you would. That being alone doesn't always mean being lonely. That silence isn't always punishment. Sometimes it's preparation. And as you grow, you start to notice something even more important. Your need for validation begins to shrink. You no longer need someone else's message to tell you you matter. You don't need their approval to know your love was real, that your efforts counted, that your heart was always in the right place. The freedom that comes from letting go of that need, it's unlike anything else. Because when you're no longer chasing after someone's recognition, you start standing taller in your own truth. That's when life begins to open up again. And if you're wondering, what if they really never reach out again? Let's talk about that. Let's face it head on. Imagine for a moment that this silence never ends, that you live the rest of your years without that call, that visit, that apology. Would it hurt? Of course. Would it define you? Only if you let it. But what if, instead, you saw it as the closing of one chapter, not the whole story? Because the story is still yours to write, page by page, hour by hour, decision by decision, and maybe, just maybe, this space is clearing the way for something new to begin, a deeper relationship with yourself, a new friendship that fills your days with laughter, a sense of peace that no one else can disturb because it's built from the inside out. Let's think of it this way. If you were climbing a mountain and someone chose to stop walking beside you, would you sit down and wait forever? Or would you keep climbing? Would you make it to the top for them? Or for you? That's the question to hold close. There's a kind of bravery in continuing the journey even when someone you love steps away. It doesn't mean you've left them behind. It means you're honoring your life. And here's where it all comes together. This isn't just about their silence. It's about your story. One that's still unfolding. One that deserves to be written with intention, not reaction. No matter how old you are, you still get to grow. You still get to evolve. You still get to fall in love with life again, in big ways and small. So when the doubts creep in, and they will, remind yourself, this chapter is not the end. It's the in-between. The space where something inside you is transforming quietly. The way a seed becomes a tree. Not overnight, but surely. This might be your time to bloom, Not for their applause, but for your own fulfillment. Because at the end of the day, you're not defined by who walks away. You're defined by how you walk forward. And I believe you're walking with strength. Now, if you're looking for something to help you take that next step, something tangible, here's a gentle challenge. It's called the 10-day reset. No, it's not a diet. And it's not about changing your entire life overnight. It's about showing up for yourself each day with one small act of self-respect. Here's how it works. Each morning before checking your messages or turning on the news, take 5 minutes just for you. You can journal, breathe, meditate, walk outside, stretch. Then pick one small thing to do each day that supports your own growth. Maybe that's cooking a new recipe, calling an old friend, reading a chapter of a book, or learning a new skill online. Whatever it is, let it be something that makes you feel present and alive, not just occupied. Keep a notepad nearby. Each night, write down one sentence. Today, I honored myself by... You'll be amazed at what those tiny moments add up to. And if your child does reach out someday, wonderful. You'll be ready to greet them not from a place of hurt or desperation, but from strength and peace. And if they don't, you'll still be proud of who you've become. Because you didn't waste this time waiting. You used it to grow. That, my friend, is what thriving looks like. Even in silence. You've earned your peace. Now hold on to it. And if this video resonated with you, if it gave you even one idea or moment of comfort, I invite you to share your experience in the comments. Sometimes your words help someone else feel seen too. You can simply type, "I choose peace," or "I'm doing the 10-day reset." Your voice matters. And if you haven't already, please hit that like button and subscribe to Strong Elderly Life, where we believe that every chapter, including this one, can be powerful, joyful, and full of growth. Because no matter who contacts you, or doesn't, you're still here. You're still rising. And you're still worthy of a life that makes you proud. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.